there a connection between the Zika virus and microcephaly? We'll have a report. Barack Obama condemns violence against Muslim Americans during his first visit to a U.S. mosque as president. And it's Super Bowl for animal lovers. Canine cuties ready for the Puppy Bowl face-off. Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Vincent Makori. This is Africa 54. Well, tonight, amid growing concerns over the Zika virus, Latin American health ministers are backing a public information campaign and boosting the number of medical workers to fight the mosquito-borne virus. So far, the Zika virus seems to pose the greatest threat to pregnant women. Joining us now is Africa 54 health correspondent Lino Mudu to tell us more about the disease and its impact. Lino.
Vincent, the Zika virus rarely causes problems for the people who get it, but it seems to be having a devastating impact on babies whose mothers are infected with Zika. The World Health Organization says the virus is strongly suspected to cause microcephaly, a condition that causes babies to be born with abnormally small heads. VOA's Carol Pearson has more.
The Zika virus erupted in Brazil last May. And now, more than 4,000 babies are suspected of having microcephaly, an abnormally small head. The link between Zika and microcephaly has not been proven, but the World Health Organization says until scientists can come up with a better explanation, the Zika virus is the cause. This image from the Centers for Disease Control website shows a baby with a small head. The dashes show how big a normal baby's head should be. The CDC says microcephaly is unusual. Having microcephaly doesn't always mean the baby suffers from other defects like problems with speech, vision, hearing, movement, and intellect.
10 to 15% of American babies with microcephaly are completely normal.
In a Skype interview, Dr. Edward McCabe from the March of Dimes said the babies born in Brazil, shown in the videos, seem to have severe cases. The concern is how they're going to develop as they get older.
The key thing is the baby needs to be evaluated, doing an ultrasound of the brain, doing an MRI of the head. But the important thing is to follow the baby clinically, and it doesn't hurt to have early intervention.
That might include physical or speech therapy. McCabe also says not every baby will have the same outcome.
Our knowledge of microcephaly and babies with microcephaly prior to the Zika virus association is that there is a spectrum that stretches from normal to even high intelligence through the spectrum in terms of developmental delay.
Until more is known about this virus, doctors are telling pregnant women in Latin America and the Caribbean, and those who may become pregnant, to wear long-sleeved shirts, long pants, a hat, and use an insect repellent with DEET on any uncovered skin. Carol Pearson, VOA News, Washington.
As we've mentioned, countries and medical officials worldwide are on high alert as concerns over the Zika virus continue to rise. The World Health Organization says it is concerned about reports the Zika virus was sexually transmitted and has called for a thorough investigation. This after health officials in the U.S. state of Texas reported on Tuesday the first known case of Zika virus transmission in the United States. They say it was likely contracted through sex and not a mosquito bite. WHO spokesman Christian Lindmeier explains.
We have seen only 2 cases so far of sexual transmission. So while it seems possible that the virus spreads through semen and is possibly transmittable through blood, these are so far only the rare cases of transmission. What we do see is a huge majority of mosquito infections. But of course, it is important right now to study carefully this possible transmission of through sexual transmission. Right now, it's recommendable to practice what WHO has been recommending all the way along, safe sex, which would be the best way to prevent any sort of infection.
The Zika virus was discovered in 1947 in monkeys in Uganda. The virus, now linked to babies born in Brazil with microcephaly, abnormally small heads, is spreading in the Americas. While the links are still being explored, the WHO has declared an international public health emergency. Health ministers from Latin America gathered on Wednesday in Montevideo, Uruguay, for the first regional conference regarding the region's battle against the outbreak. Marcelo Castro, Brazil's health minister, revealed some details about the outbreak in his country.
There are approximately 4,700 diagnosed cases with microcephaly. It's important to clarify that these cases are cases that have been flagged, suspected, but not confirmed. In terms of confirmed cases, we have approximately 400.
Castro says Brazil is fighting the outbreak on a variety of fronts, including the development of a vaccine. The WHO is warning regions beyond Latin America, including Europe, Africa, and Asia, to be on guard. The WHO says so far, the virus has been transmitted in at least 32 countries, from South America to the Western Pacific. There is no vaccine currently available to protect against the virus. The Aedes aegypti mosquito transmits the Zika virus. And that's our Africa 54 health report for today. Vincent?
Well, Lino, thanks, and be sure to watch Lino Mudu's health reports every Tuesday and Thursday right here on Africa 54. Well, a confidential report to the United Nations Security Council accuses Rwanda of recruiting and training Burundian refugees with the goal of ousting Burundian President Pierre Nkurunziza. The report by experts who monitor sanctions on Democratic Republic of Congo was seen by Reuters on Wednesday. It cites accounts from several rebel fighters who told the sanctions monitors the training was done in a forest camp in Rwanda. Rwanda's ambassador to the UN, Eugene Gasana, dismissed the accusations. Burundi accused Rwanda in December of supporting a rebel group that was recruiting Burundian refugees on Rwandan soil, but Rwandan President Paul Kagame dismissed the allegations as childish. Not too far from Rwanda, expectations to return Central African Republic to normalcy are high as the two former prime ministers battle for votes in the upcoming run of February 14th election. Africa 54's Esther Githuyu has our report.
Neither of the two former prime ministers, Anise George Dalogile and Foster Tuadera, garnered 50% of the vote required in the first round held on December 30th, 2015, to avoid a runoff ballot. The election is being held to replace a transitional government installed in 2014 and led by Catherine Samba-Panza. Central African Republic has witnessed a long, tumultuous period since its independence from France in 1960, with rebellions and coups that have divided the country along religious and ethnic lines. The most recent conflict began in 2013 after a rebel leader, Michel Djotodia, overthrew the government of longtime President Francois Bozize. The conflict saw long-running battles between the Muslim rebel group known as Seleka and a Christian militia group known as Anti-Balaka. Hundreds were killed and thousands fled their homes. U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations Samantha Power visited the country to see the situation firsthand and described the situation then as horrific.
Untold horrors continue in small villages throughout the countryside, and more than 19,000 Muslims are trapped in the capital, too afraid of anti-Balaka forces to leave their hiding places.
Displaced civilians could be seen leaving the country, while others remained in deplorable conditions with no one to attend to those injured, including children. Valerie Amos, Under-Secretary General for Humanitarian Affairs, described the situation as extremely grave.
The situation in the Central African Republic is extremely grave, and urgent action is required by everyone if we're going to prevent further bloodshed.
As violence continued, the United Nations created a force to patrol city streets in the capital, Bangui, trying to keep the situation calm. But soon, allegations emerged that some soldiers were involved in sexual misconduct against civilians. UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon expressed his anger.
I believe the disturbing number of allegations we have seen in many countries, but particularly in the Central African Republic, in the period before UN peacekeepers were deployed and since, speaks to the need to take action now. Enough is enough.
As the two former prime ministers run tough campaigns to woo voters, the country's food situation is alarming. The World Food Programme Regional Coordinator, Margot van der Velden, says hundreds of civilians have no idea where their next meal will come from.
1 out of 2 people in Central African Republic don't have enough food to eat and don't know where the next meal is coming from. The people most affected are the returnees and the hundreds and thousands of people that remain internally displaced inside Central African Republic.
In his last stop of an historic tour of Africa, Pope Francis visited Bangui, saying, "I come to the Central African Republic as a pilgrim of peace and as an apostle of hope." The pontiff visited the Grand Mosque of Kuduko and celebrated Mass at the Notre Dame Cathedral in the capital, preaching reconciliation between Muslims and Christians. Central African Republic is rich in gold, uranium, oil and diamonds, yet it remains one of the world's poorest nations. The candidate that wins the run of elections faces enormous tasks to restore democracy, rebuild the country's institutions, and unite the people who have been devastated by years of political turmoil. Esther Githu-Ewart, VOA News, Washington.
Well, I want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we covered. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa54. And check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Find me on Twitter at VOA Vincent Makori. Well, coming up, Barack Obama visits a mosque for the first time as U.S. president. Stay with us.
News and notes. This is Living Better.
We're making yoga really accessible for a lot of people that normally wouldn't set foot in a yoga studio. We get a lot of people that are brand new to yoga, never tried it before. A lot of people that get bribed to be here with beer on the agenda.
That's right. Instructor Sheila Davis said beer. She's teaching a yoga class at Florida's Miami Brewing Company.
Right back into downward facing dog. It's okay to moan.
Practitioners tout yoga's benefits for improved flexibility, muscle strength, and tone. But the people taking this class admit they're here for different reasons.
I did it because the girlfriend wanted me to come and free beer.
The girls usually love the yoga and the men usually love the craft beer. So this is a way to get both of them together at the same time and to do it as a couple and enjoy it. And the men who don't think they love yoga may love it in the end.
Yoga and craft beer are both expanding industries in the United States. I'm Martin Seacrest for VOA's Living Better.
U.S. President Barack Obama says an attack on one religious faith is an attack on all faiths. He spoke during his first visit to an American mosque as president on Wednesday in Baltimore, Maryland. VOA's Chris Simpkins has more on the story.
That's not who we are.
President Obama delivered a simple message.
We're one American family, and when any part of our family starts to feel separate or second class or targeted, it tears at the very fabric of our nation.
Obama told the gathering at the Islamic Society of Baltimore he's concerned about hostilities directed towards Muslim Americans in the wake of the Paris and San Bernardino terrorist attacks. Even this mosque has been threatened with violence.
You've seen too often people conflating the horrific acts of terrorism with the beliefs of an entire faith. And of course, recently we've heard inexcusable political rhetoric against Muslim Americans.
Republican presidential frontrunner Donald Trump has proposed a temporary ban on any new Muslim immigrants entering the United States and setting up a Muslim database. Other Republican contenders have rejected the idea. Pakistani-American Ahmed Rana and his wife say they're glad Obama and Democratic candidate Hillary Clinton are speaking out against discrimination towards Muslims.
We voted for him twice. He got elected, and especially Hillary Clinton, the sign she saw, we all are Muslim. That shows support, that she has more respect for Muslim, and I think mostly majority of the Muslim going to support her.
Obama talked about government efforts to work with Muslim American leaders to counter attempts by extremist groups to radicalize members of the Muslim community in the United States.
This warped thinking that has found adherents around the world including, as we saw tragically in Boston and Chattanooga and San Bernardino, is real. So all of us have the task of expressing our religious faith in a way that seeks to build bridges rather than to divide.
Retired veterinarian Anwar Chowdhury was glad the president came.
His comments, his speech was very, very encouraging. Not for us. We have to help other people and they have to help us to have a strong fabric of this country.
Obama called on Americans to stay true to American values, such as freedom of religion, and to speak up for tolerance and respect.
You fit in here, right here.
Chris Simpkins, VOA News, Washington.
Well, Somalia has been in turmoil for decades. In the last few years, the East African nation has been rebuilding politically and economically while dealing with insecurity caused by the terrorist group Al-Shabaab. However, the people of Somalia have displayed an amazing degree of resilience under the circumstances. Somali author Abdulatif Eger captures that spirit in his novel Guban. And Abdi joins me now to talk about his book and the source of his inspiration. Welcome to Africa 54.
Thank you for having me here, Vincent.
So first, share with us a little bit what Guban is all about, the book Guban.
Well, Guban is, to make it plain, is about an alternative narrative that is normally depicted in the mainstream media, which focuses on violence, warlords, pirates, and terrorists, and it excludes that image, that imagery, and continuous dissemination of information that way. Excludes the realities of peace building and many other things. So that's
not to deny that the country has gone through a lot of violence for decades now. I mean, for about 20 years or more, the country existed without a government, a central government.
That's true.
What is it that people missed out on that? As
well, I think the problem has been it has been focused on 20% or 10% of the country, which is Mogadishu, the capital, and it has ignored the peace-building efforts that has been throughout Somalia for 20 years plus. There are places in Somalia, like Somaliland, Puntland, have been, actually more democratic than other East African nations. We have 4 sitting presidents in Somaliland, for example, and in Puntland and other areas. So beyond that, for an author, what I'm concerned about is the dissemination of this particular imagery that dehumanizes the African personality, for example. And it also is very attached to the linkages of, for example, Hollywood and its racism towards the African figure. So this is why I'm offering a different narrative, because it is real. It is not. It is not the only this terrorist or warlord area, but there's a lot of hope and different ways of methods that people
now,
are putting.
Granted, there are so many great things that happen in a country like Somalia. There's a rich culture. There is, of course, coexistence. Even in that turmoil, people have existed together. But who do you hold responsible for that distorted image of Somalia and Africa?
I think the mainstream media. I would put it blankly, because they have not concerned themselves more so than understanding what the imagery and what nomenclature is. Because using words and in description, in the continuum of colonialism, post-colonialism, and continuing to use that images impacts heavily in, for example, the disengagement between the American, for example, public and and the Western public with their countries in adjudicating policies that are less militaristic.
But, many times we do accuse Western media, when you're talking about mainstream media, of, portraying these images. But what do you think of local media, African media? Does it really focus on the positive, on the uplifting stories?
I think there's a unanimity of training in terms of journalists, and the news today is everywhere. CNN in a small village in Somalia, or in a remote area in Kenya is running consistently. So we have a system today that, yes, we do have local reporting, but you will find somebody who is the neighbor of Somalia having his information and ideas of his neighbor through aggregated media of the world. Mm-hmm. So there's a disconnect there. So what I'm trying to say with the quote-unquote globalization, there's a consumption of the same headline international stories everywhere.
Mm-hmm. Now, who do you hope will get to read a book like Guban, and also whatever other book you may be writing that could help change that perception, or at least benefit from a better portrayal of the continent of Africa?
Well, yeah, I think one thing that has to be made clear here is that it is not a portrayal that is basically for feeling good. But the reality is, the actuality is that it is a narrative that is real and exists and is often not reported. For example, there's a lot of journalism today that is focused on African hunger, African violence, African, pretty much horrendous imagery, although they do exist, but most of the stories lack the context that they orbit in.
And I think that is key. You're talking about the context. It's like, okay, this is happening here, but this is not all. Beyond Mogadishu, beyond Garissa, Mandera, there's something else that is happening.
For example, give you one of the favorite things, like the Beast of the Nations is now going on. One of the favorite things about, for the last decade, has been the story of the child soldier. Now, the child soldier exists within an area where there's, like Congo, a huge contestation between corporations for resources.
For the minerals there,
So, but when you're reporting it, or people are writing about these things, they are only reporting about
the child soldiers. Nobody's talking about the background.
There's no context.
Who's behind this?
This is the problem. And so when people in the West and other places in Africa are looking at it, they're saying, what's wrong? Where are the parents of these kids? You see, this affects the African personality and continues that
and
colonial
excludes or excuses even those external forces. But very quickly, so what's your next project? You told me you're working on something and you're inspired by that kind of...
my next work is something to do with what you and me and other Africans who have been living in the United States for decades. It's concerned about the diaspora, the existential or the living of someone like me, and the trials and tribulations of being an immigrant. It is not the necessarily, glorious, rags to riches. You've come to America and you've done very well. This is a story about so many different realities, whether it is good or bad, but how that has impacted on the lives of people in terms of, just struggling to be here with accents, with religion, with all these things during the war term. So that is the focus of the next book, which is Musa. I'm running an Indiegogo campaign because, again, mainstream publishing is not focusing on these stories. They're more concerned about the stories that...
The ones that bleed, violence and all. Well, thanks a lot. And I know you also do a lot of jazz. Perhaps next time you come here, we do some jazz.
Thank you.
Abdi, thank you very much.
So much.
Thanks a lot for joining us today on the show. Abdul Latif Ega is an author and a native of Somalia. Well, it's time now for a short break. Still to come on Africa 54. Animal lovers, get ready for a possum Super Bowl event. We'll be right back.
If you've just joined us, I'm Mariama Diallo, and here is a quick recap of today's headlines. In Nigeria, President Muhammadu Buhari attends the Syria Donor Conference to support the anti-terror war in London. In Congo, warlord Germain Katanga on trial again for crimes against humanity after completing a 12-year International Criminal Court sentence. In Uganda, the country gears up for the February 18th presidential elections, in which 7 opposition candidates compete with incumbent Yoweri Museveni. Finally, in Niger, shouting Hama for president, thousands attend a rally to support the jailed opposition figure Hama Amadou's presidential candidacy. That's all for today. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
Welcome back to Africa 54. Here's what's trending. As football fans anticipate the Super Bowl, the animal lovers can't wait for the annual Puppy Bowl. It's a miniaturized football game played by approximately 80 puppies, and they're all up for adoption. They are from shelters and rescue centers around the U.S., of course. Puppy Bowl is not just about puppies. There is the Kitten Halftime Show featuring 20 cats, all available for adoption. Still not impressed? Well, the show will also feature chicken cheerleaders. And that's right. You heard that right. The 2-hour-long Puppy Bowl 12 premieres on the Animal Planet cable network Sunday, February the 17th. In other Super Bowl news, Lady Gaga is set to sing the national anthem at the Super Bowl on Sunday. Gaga's upcoming performance during the Super Bowl is another notch in her belt. She won a Golden Globe for her role in American Horror Story Hotel last month, and she is nominated for Best Original Song at the next month's Academy Awards with Till It Happens to You, the song she wrote with Diane Warren for the sexual assault documentary The Hunting Ground. The song is also nominated for a Grammy at the February 15th awards show, where Gaga will pay tribute to David Bowie with a performance. Well, meanwhile, in Singapore, long lines formed outside banks as many ethnic Chinese lined up at the cash deposit machines on the traditional first day of spring. On this day, superstitious Singaporeans believe that putting in auspicious amounts of cash that contain their lucky numbers will bring them even more money in the Lunar New Year. It's unclear when this practice started, but charts instructing people on their lucky numbers and the best time to deposit money, according to their Chinese zodiac, are circulated around the city-state. And that is what is trending today. Well, and that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. For more news, tune in to VOA's evening radio show, Africa News Tonight at 1800 UTC, and in the mornings to Daybreak Africa between 0300 and 0600 UTC, Monday through Friday. Thanks a lot for watching from all of us in Washington. Have a good night.
Welcome to the Voice of America's News Words.
Does this word mean something good has happened?
Unleashed. The president is sending Secretary of State John Kerry to the Middle East to help build a coalition to defeat the militants who have unleashed a wave of violence that has included attacks on Iraq's Christians and other minority communities, and recently the videotaped killing of American journalist James Foley.
Unleashed means to let something very powerful happen quickly.
It is like taking a leash off a dog and letting it attack someone. In our story, the militants unleashed or set off a wave of violence.
Usually, unleashed does not mean something good.
So, the next time you hear the word unleashed, you will know what this news word means.